18.
Telling him not to counterpunch. 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 Telling him not to counterpunch.
Welcome to yet another exciting edition of Sports Talk here on Atlantic Television Network. On this edition of the program, Nigeria Athletics set to host Olympic qualifying event. Coming in from tennis, Novak Djokovic eases into the second round. And from the world of football, Super Eagles camp hit by injuries ahead of the World Cup qualifier in New York. Details of these and many more will be yours when we return from the break. Welcome back. I have with me this hour, Kingsley Manuel.
Thank you very much for having me, Siri. Very happy to be here this morning.
As usual, we'll start from the local scene where, as the countdown to the fourth Grand Prix begins, the competition we host this Friday and run through to Saturday is set to witness the historic participation of athletes from Europe and Asia across. In Benin, and of course, we'll have Nigerian athletes trying to qualify for the. Most of them who have already qualified for the event will be participating in the Nigerian Olympic trials.
Yes, for me, I think it's a good one that we're preparing trials, like this, for we to be able to, of course, to be in a favorable shape and as well get the best, of athletes that will actually go down to the Olympics, to represent the country. We have about 3 trials. One, of course, will be
in Lagos.
And as
one
well,
in Cameroon. The African
well.
Championship.
The African Championship as well. So for me, I think it's a good one from the Athletic Federation, and for what we're seeing at this point in time, this really shaped the athletes, to be able to put themselves in order and be able to know their strengths heading down into the Olympic Games. This time, I think Team Nigeria were very much ready when it has to do with athletics. We saw what the team was at the Athletic Federation. The team they were able to do at the African game. They put up a very impressive performance, and I think they are not relenting. They still want to make sure they go to the Olympics and be able to clear, what happened last time, of course, in Tokyo. For me, it's a good one. We're seeing these trials at this point in time. It's a great long way in making sure that the athletes, of course, are very much prepared for the Paris Olympic Games.
Nigerian athletes going to the Olympic Games. Team Nigeria, so to say, getting ready and shaped up via series of trials and championship that will put them in top shape for the competition. We understand that the list of entrants for this competition in Lagos gets revealed tomorrow.
Yeah, it's definitely, of course, be reviewed tomorrow, and we're going to be seeing the athletes, of course, that will be coming in for this trial. Just like we heard, most of the athletes will be coming in, from Europe, Asia, and some other parts of Africa down here. And I think for me, it's going to be a very, very impressive one to look at. For let's hope for the best, for the athletes in this one.
From athletics, we'll go to basketball. And talking about basketball reminds me that it is D-Day today, semi-final day at the Basketball League in Africa, ongoing at the KB Arena in Kigali, Rwanda. Kingsley, the Rivers Hoopers, Nigerian representative, yes, been to the quarterfinal for the very first time. They have a chance of playing, into the final of the competition, win at the semi-final stage, and they are finalists. What do you expect? They have Ahali of Benghazi to contend with in the semi-final fixture coming up later today. Ahali of Benghazi did eliminate Nigeria's most successful basketball side, Ahali of Egypt. And so this looks like one of their toughest fights so far at the Basketball League in Africa.
For me, I think this is where they actually meet a very tough opponent. They've actually been playing, somebody. In fact, I won't say very tough opponent. US Monastir is a tough side.
It's former defending champions.
Yeah, former
they were 2022
champion.
defending champions.
So they have that pedigree. They played AP Arrow. They played AS Donetsk. The Libyan side, I think they're another strong side, in this competition. For them to be able to defeat Ahali of Egypt, that's to show that, of course, they are a very formidable side, at this point in time. So for me, it's going to be a very tight one against Libya, the Libyan side, against for Rivers Hoopers, at this point in time. We understand how the players, they've been able to, of course, to put themselves together. We saw what happened in the last game against US Monastir. The players, they came up to the party and were able to showcase their strength. The likes of Divine AK, Perry, who actually was the best performer, of course.
Yeah, Perry, I understand he put up as many as 31 points in the last game against US Monastir, former champions from Tunisia.
He's been very instrumental for the success of Rivers Hoopers, right from the conference games, where they won about 3 games, in the stretch. The man has been churning out the points. He's been putting up the 3-pointers, of course, for Rivers Hoopers. And you will ask, where is he getting the strength from? Even that's when he doesn't really have that height, but his energy, and his footwork and the way he's been able to galvanize, down the court have been very, very impressive. And he's been so instrumental, for the success we've seen for Rivers Hoopers so far in the Basketball Africa League. But against, the Libyan side today, I think it's going to be a very tight one. Taking a look at how far, the Libyan side they've gone, I think Ogo Daldu and the players should try most they can to see how they can be able, to get past them. It will be another history for River Supers if they will definitely, if they get, to the final. They will be the first Nigerian side, of course, to get to the Basketball African League final. That will be another history for them. So history awaits them. They know what is at stake, and I think they'll be going all out as well for this one.
So interesting fixture for the Rivers Hoopers. Make win their counterparts from Tripoli, Libya, and of course get to the final, and that will be history extraordinary because that will be the first Nigerian side to play in the final of the basketball league that is into its fourth season. We told you about the injection of 5 players that has made the team very thick. 5 foreign-based players, 3 of them I think are Americans, and they've done so well in helping the team get to the final. Coach Dado has never had it so good in basketball. He was part of the first edition. Nigeria, of course, didn't make it in the second edition because of politics. By the third edition, we have Kora Bombers who did not do any better than River Supers after their first appearance. This is the first time we're having Nigeria win games, back to back, 3 in the bounce. Of course, it went to 4-2, and now they are into the semi-final and could be playing in the final. We couldn't ask for any more from River Supers. They are popularly called the Kingsmen from Rivers, but they represent Nigeria in this competition. And if you're in the semi-final, why don't you get to the final? If you're in the final, why don't you win the trophy?
Of course, I think for me, no one give them these opportunities to be able to go this far in the competition. Despite the injection of the foreign-based players, everyone thought it's going to be business as usual, where they go there and being hosted out, from the group stage of the competition. But they actually put up a surprise.
Talking about the team themselves, they said the ambition was to qualify from the group, and anything from there, anything could happen. But now they did not just only qualify from the group; they came first in the Sahara Conference, you remember, in Dakar, and now they are powering on into the semi-final stage of the competition. We wish them the very best of luck today. They have their counterparts from Tripoli to contend with, and like we mentioned, this is a tough side that eliminated Nigeria's most successful side, Al Ahly of Egypt, from the competition, and so River Supers must be on their guard today at every point in time. There's another semi-final fixture, Kingsley. Well, talking about River Super, that reminds me. It looks like so far they get them to the final and maybe win the trophy, and that will be a wonderful gift for the River State government that is celebrating about how many years now? About 1 year office for the governor, and of course the anniversary of the state, which is about 54 years or so.
For me, I think it would be a good way, in putting up that celebration as well, for the River State governors, similarly Fubra. Because the man has, supported the team so well. He was, of course, he didn't hesitate when the need, to inject in those foreign-based players, came. He was able, with the help of the sport commissioner, of course, we were able to get, those players. And I think for me, it would be a good way for the governor, of course, to celebrate his 1 year in office. And for River Supers, of course, I think for me, they've done well. Getting down to the semi-final and just, a game for them to get to the final is a very huge achievement for them, when it has to do with, basketball down here in Nigeria, and as well as, Africa as well. For the coach, Ogo Odaldo, I think for me, he has done his best. For me, this is one of his best tournaments, you could talk about. Ogo Odaldo, I don't think he has actually gone this far, in his career, but taking this team, to this level, for me, he has actually shown his tactical prowess as a basketball manager, and I think for me, his pedigree, they will definitely, of course, increase. Good one for what they've done so far. We just hope that, they'll be able to, give this one as a gift, to the governor as he celebrates his 1 year in office.
Godado, one of the local coaches as the Basketball League Africa, and doing the continent very proud. We've seen the other clubs as teams, being coached by foreign-based coaches, foreign coaches. But Godado, the local coach, doing so well at the Basketball League in Africa. There's yet another semi-final pairing later today at the Basketball League in Africa. And one name that is there that you will be shocked is the boys from Cape Town. No one expected them to be at the semi-final stage of the competition.
No one expected them to be at the semi-final stage of the competition for Cape Town. This is their second appearance in the Basketball African League. And surprisingly, they shocked, Fuse of Rabat. That's the team from Morocco.
Number 1 seed.
Number 1 seed. 91 to 88. It ended in that particular encounter. Was a very, very cagey encounter, as it is. And from what it is, I think they've actually done their homework, before coming down to this edition of the Basketball African League. The fourth season was so abysmal for them. They didn't actually, get something huge. But this time, I think they were able to do their work, at home. And coming down to this one, you see how, impressive they've been. They'll be playing Petro de Luanda, another strong side as well when it has to do with, basketball down here in Africa. It's going to be a very cagey one, a tight one, of course. It will be, from what we've seen, what the two teams they've done so far in this edition of the Basketball Africa League. We just hope that the best team at the end of the day will get the victory.
Basketball League Africa ongoing at the KB Arena in Kigali, Rwanda, and for me, it's been the fourth season of surprises. Yes, because if you followed basketball in Africa, you know that basketball in Africa is normally dominated by North African teams. Ahali of Egypt, AS Benghazi, have been there as well. We told you about US Monastir of South Africa, who won in 2022, defending champions. Ahali of Egypt knocked out already by relatively unknown sides. And right now, Kingsley, we had, in the past 3 editions, we've seen North African teams win. Ahali of Egypt, US Monastir, and the rest. 3 of them have won, in the past 3 editions. This time around, the only North African side left in the competition is AS Tripoli of Egypt. So it's looking like the dominance of North African teams in basketball will just come to an end, this season. If Rivers Hoopers eliminate AS Benghazi later today, we don't have them anymore. 3 teams eliminated already from before the semi-final stage of the competition. So we have only one North African side. We have, of course, from West Africa, Nigeria, and of course, like you mentioned, from Southern Africa, Angola, who will be playing against the South African side later today.
For me, I think this might probably be the end of dominance, from the North African teams when it has to do with the Basketball Africa League. They've not been so fantastic. I took a look at the defending champion US Monastir in the Sahara Conference. We saw how they struggled. In fact, I think they lost about 3 or 4, about 3 of their games, in the conference stage of the competition. And this is a team that everyone, of course, was so afraid when we saw that particular group that they were going to be the best. But unfortunately, we saw the likes of River Supers, of course, dominating that particular one. They've not been so, fantastic, as it is. And for me, I think from what we're seeing at this point in time, River Supers there, Petro de Rwanda at this point in time are also there as it stands. And the team from South Africa, Cape Town Tigers, are also at the semi-final stage of the competition. So when you take a look at it, I don't see, the North African side, coming up all through to take up this one. For me, I think this might just be the end of dominance we'll be seeing, from the North African teams in terms of winning the Basketball African League.
End of dominance for the North African side at the Basketball League in Africa, and we'll keep our fingers crossed on it. Later today, we'll see whether Rivers Hoopers will drive the final nail on the dominance of a North African side at the Basketball League on the continent of Africa. Wish the Rivers Hoopers the very best of luck there. And let's stay away from continental basketball now and go to, of course, international basketball. The NBA is into getting qualifications to the finals. Yes, and talking about qualification reminds me that Boston Celtic are now the Eastern Conference finalists because they eliminated Indiana Pacers 105-102, ending the Pacers competition because it is now 4-0, best of 7. So Indiana Pacers are crushed out of this year's finals.
As for the competition, so unfortunate for them. They couldn't even get a win, in this particular one. Boston Celtic looking very much fantastic. Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum being the men, of course, at the helm of affairs for the Boston Celtic. And I think they've actually done a whole lot, to make sure that they take the team, to this particular height. You can also take away Drew Holiday and as well as Derek White. They've also been very fantastic, for this victory for the Boston Celtic. Impressive one for them. I think they're actually looking for another title, after winning their last title, the NBA title in 2008. This is going to be another opportunity, for them to see how they can actually get another title for themselves. So for me, it's been an impressive ride for the Boston Celtic side, and we hope that, they will continue with this impressive momentum. For the Indiana Pacers side, I think it was so unfortunate. It was so unfortunate for them at this stage of the competition. They couldn't win any of for the encounter against the Bolton Celtics side. Take a look at the way they were able to maneuver their way down here. Everyone thought, of course, it was going to be very rosy for them, but all of a sudden they all dropped in terms of performance. And I think the doggedness of the Bolton Celtics side was something they couldn't actually overturn, and that was why, of course, they lost in that margin. And for me, good one for the Bolton Celtic. Let's see if they can get their second title after winning the last one in 2008.
Dallas Mavericks versus Minnesota Timberwolves. The Wolves from Timberwolves seem to have gotten it right after all.
Yeah, they've gotten this right. Ended 105 to 100 to 100. In that particular encounter, and from what we're seeing at this point in time, it's been another impressive ride, of course, for the Wolves, because from what we're seeing, they're actually putting up a huge level of dominance, as at this point.
So it looks like they have hope now, because Dallas Mavericks thought they could wrap it up.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, this match took place in Dallas.
Yeah, very, very surprising. And I think they would have actually wrapped this particular one up.
Yes.
But,
well, everyone expected that, because they were going back to Dallas, that the Mavericks were going to wrap this one up. But Timberwolves, like we said there, had complete different idea. 105 to 100 points, 5 points better than the home side. I'm very sure that maybe the Dallas Mavericks left one or two things, maybe took it for granted, because they were going back home. They've won 3-0, on the road, and
just to wrap things up.
Just to wrap things up.
For me, I think it's game on at this point in time. We'll definitely see Timberwolves, of course, coming up. One man that's been very instrumental for the Timberwolves is Anthony Edwards, and he actually put up a very impressive performance, on the night, and that's why, of course, they were able to bounce back, in that particular one. And at this point in time, I think they should really give in their all in their next encounter to see how they can put this up. Maybe we might possibly see this one, of course, getting down to the wire if the Timberwolves, of course, put up a very impressive performance, and also making sure they make a huge comeback, at this point in time. But for me, I think the Mavericks, they have what it takes to wrap things up, in the next encounter. We expected more from Luka Doncic as well in this one.
Kyrie Irving as well.
Kyrie Irving as well, but they didn't really come to the party. But we hope maybe in the next encounter, they might just get things wrapped up, or probably the Timberwolves side, to continue to stretch the encounter.
Carl Anthony, no doubt, did his very best there. Carl Anthony Towns, and of course, his counterpart, Luka Doncic. We're talking about Luka Doncic not getting it right, but Carl Anthony Edwards, and of course, Edwards did Carl Town and Anthony Edwards did it for Mavericks there, and now giving them hope. It is now 3-1. And out of 4 games, so could they make it 3-2, or it will be 4-1? 4-1, and it will be game over.
4-1 game over, and the Mavericks, of course, take this one to the final. But Timberwolves coming back to get this one, I think it will be another stretch for them if they can probably take it down to the wire. But I don't really see that possibility. I'm not really seeing that happening. I think Dallas Mavericks, of course, might probably wrap this up in the next encounter.
Dallas Mavericks, no doubt about it. Looks like the candidate that will be representing the Western Conference final, but for the Eastern, I will tell you how a very tough side has emerged. It was funny. Indiana Pacers sent back home out there, and we just hope that Pacers can get it right. Pacers have been struggling to be in the finals, and they've often fallen short at the semi-final stage.
Also unfortunate for them, taking a look at how far they've come, and this time looking at see if they were going to get all the way down to the final, but being beaten mercilessly by the Boston Celtics, at the semi-final stage. For me, also unfortunate. We saw the performance of most of the players, really trying their best, but for what it is, I think they have a lot. They've actually done a lot for themselves. They've learned well. Maybe next season they can see how far they can go come next season.
Well, let's see how far they go. But for now, both Celtics are waiting for a qualifier from the Western Conference. Will it be Timberwolves, or it will be their counterparts? We'll just keep our fingers crossed and see who gets it. But Minnesota Timberwolves right now is beginning to have some good ideas, and those ideas could just give a lot of trouble to their opponents at this year's Basketball League final. Dallas Mavericks trying as much as possible to see. They will be still at home. Let's see what comes out of it. Let's stay away from basketball and go to tennis and talk about tennis. Reminds me that Haruna Quadri right now has been ranked number 17 in, and of course that's 17 in the world, and of course number 1 in Africa. At his age, still powering on, taking his Egyptian counterparts to the cleaners.
Yeah, Aruna Quadri still the man to contend with when it has to do with table tennis in Nigeria as well as Africa and even the world as well. Impressive one for him. Don't forget he just won the ITTF African Cup in Rwanda, and that really boosted, of course, his ranking points down to 17 at this as it is. A good one for him, though. In the past 2 years, the man has not been that fantastic, but when he actually come up with his A game, you always see him living up to expectation, and that particular performance we saw at the ITTF Cup in Rwanda really gave him that boost. And I think for me it's a good one for Aruna, especially aiming to perform as well at the Olympic Games. It was even way better than Omar Sarr of Egypt, who has been contending with him for some years now. Omar Sarr had an impressive performance in the Durban tournament also, and that has really made him to slip when it has to do with the ranking at this point. But for me, good one for Aruna. I think for me it's a huge morale booster for him, huge motivation as well for him heading down to the Olympic Games. So hope for the best for him going forward.
Talking about Omar Sarr, the man who has been fighting neck to neck with Aruna Quadri as number one.
It's going to be up there, but due to the expiration of those points, and that's why we saw him fall at this point. But you talk about performance-wise, I think Omar Sarr is definitely there, even if you ask me, ahead of Aruna. But the ITTF Cup that Aruna won was what gave him that edge due to the expiration of Omar Sarr's
quarter-final points. Well, that's the rules. It's technical, and if you follow the rules, you can just get it. And I think that's what the rules has favored the Nigeria's Aruna Quadri this time around, following the expiration of points of Omar Sarr, the man from Egypt, at the quarter-final stage, and that's quite a loss for him. But they live to fight another day. The two of them continue to power on. There seems to be a new Egyptian on the block.
Yeah, there seems to be an Egyptian on the block, and he's one of the biggest movers as well in the ranking, and that's Mohamed Belli. He became the 10th best ranked player on the continent. He's been ranked 49 in the world after finishing runner-up at the 2024 ITTF African Cup, of which Aruna Quadri, of course, won. And I think for me, the Egyptians are always up there. They are always progressing.
He's now the number 24 player in the world.
Yeah, number 24, and for me, it's a very good one, for him. Looking at the performance he put up at the ITTF Cup in Rwanda, like I mentioned, Aruna won that one, and he was able to boost, of course, his ranking, down to that position. We hope for the best for him. We'll see how far he'll be able to go from here.
There is Omar Sarr, there is Meshef, there is only Aruna Quadri in Nigeria. Who next for Nigeria?
We'll just have to keep our fingers crossed. We know that a lot of table tennis players are springing up. As we hear that the Table Tennis Federation, they are looking for ways to discover more talents down here, and we'll see how far, of course, they'll be able to go down here. We're talking about replacements, of course, for Aruna Quadri. Even Funko Shunaka has been talking to the coach of the Table Tennis Federation, Terola, who has also won one time, one of the best we had, in table tennis down here, is also looking for a way to discover more talent. So we hope maybe in the next 2 to 3 years we'll be able to see another name, of course, maybe looking forward to replacing Aruna Quadri in due time.
Aruna Quadri definitely needs a replacement in a very not too distant future, I must tell you, because he's been around for a while. Doing so well right now, the number 1 ranked table tennis player in Africa, and that's, I think, is a very good one for us going ahead. But we'll have to begin to think of who will replace him. And for now, we'll take a break. When we return from a break, we'll go to lawn tennis, and talking about lawn tennis, the French Open is the biggest event ongoing right now in Paris, and Novak Djokovic, world number 1, and Iga Swiatek continue to show why they are number 1 tennis players in the world. When we return from a break, we'll bring you that, and of course, don't forget in football as well, ahead of the World Cup qualifier for FIFA World Cup in 2026, Super Eagles of Nigeria is beginning to suffer injury crisis. When we return from a break, we'll let you know who and who is injured on the Super Eagles team list.
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today. Only on ATN.
the counter punch. Killing him, not the counter punch.
Every day, our lives are changed by history,
We are one people, all of us.
leaders, politics.
Nobody's ambition is
From the lines across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring honest pop news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today. Only on ATN.
Killing him, not the counter punch.
Welcome back. It's Sports Talk here, and this is the second half of the show. And we told you about how River Supers later today will have to contend with their counterparts in a very crucial semi-final pairing. The chance to be in the final, for the very first time, the Nigerian team will be in the final of the Basketball League in Africa. Kingsley, the opponents are coming very tough.
Yes, of course, they're coming very tough, you know, at this point, and we look forward to see, you know, how far they'll be able to go this time around. And just like, you know, we'll set down here, we'll hope for the best, you know, for them. They've actually gone a long way. They've surprised, you know, everybody, and we'll hope that, you know, today they will go down there and be able to do the needful and also make Nigerians, you know, proud more than what, of course, they've been so far.
Besides making history for Nigeria as the first finalists at the Basketball League in Africa, they will be looking at ending dominance of North African teams in Basketball League on the continent of Africa, because 3 teams are already crashed out. There's one more left, and if they take out the AS Benghazi of Libya, then all the North African teams will have crashed out of this year's Basketball League in Africa, and ending their dominance, meaning that there will be no North African side winning this time around. In the last 3 editions, it's all been won by North African side. Well, we'll get back to you later on that one, maybe at 6 p.m. Nigerian time, to announce to you who has won in that fixture. But now let's go to tennis and talk about tennis. Reminds me that the French Open is the biggest tennis event ongoing around the world. In Paris, Novak Djokovic had the taste of what to expect at this year's French Open, because it took him nearly 3 hours for him to eliminate French Hugo Herbert 6-4, 7-5, 6-4. It looks easy, straight set win, but I watched that match from start to finish last night, and the serves of Hugo Herbert from France gave a lot of torrid time to Novak Djokovic, world #1 in tennis.
Yes, I think the man, not wasn't just that, an ordinary player, of course, on the day, despite the fact that he's being ranked 142. I think he has what it takes, to be able to put up a very impressive challenge,
141 points lower than Novak Djokovic.
And I think for me, you see the margin very, very huge. You expect,
But the margin didn't show on the court last night.
yeah, it didn't show on the court, and for me also, you also attribute it to how Djokovic has been so poor this season. He has not been able to get to any finals of any tournaments this season as it stands.
And the season is halfway gone.
And the season is halfway gone. It's been a poor, start, for him this season. And maybe I think it's as a result of the fact that he actually had to split with his coaches and some of his backroom staff, and that was why we've seen a little bit of setback, for him. It's been a long time we've seen, a season gone halfway without Djokovic getting to the finals, of any competition. So the season has not been a very fantastic one for him, and that's when everybody is questioning the fact that, can he actually get his 25th Grand Slam, title? Because you see the possibility is looking very slim. Take a look at how, Humbert was able to challenge him, of course, on that particular encounter. You expected Djokovic to have gone far or maybe put up a very impressive performance, than Humbert, but it is what it is, and he was able, of course, despite the fact that it was a straight set win, he was still able, to get to, of course, his mojo as well. But Djokovic was a little bit better than him. We just hope for the best for the man. Hope in the round of 32 of the competition, he'll be able to take out his next opponent, talking about Gabelas Bena.
Novak Djokovic, world number one, the man you see on your screen there, no doubt looking at trying to make history. He has 24 Grand Slams already. He's if he gets 25, it means he will be the very first man or woman to make Grand Slam number 25, because we know Margaret Court has 24, but no person on planet Earth has been able to win Grand Slam number 25. Can he slowly, progress in this one? Because from, like you mentioned, he's had a very torrid first half of the season. But we know Novak Djokovic, he can improve with every game.
Yeah, he can improve with every game, but making it 25 Grand Slam, I think it's going to take Djokovic a little bit of time. Yes, for what I'm saying, it's going to take him a little bit of time. This might not go well with him. The French Open might not, this particular one might not actually go well with him.
He's won 3 times already at the French Open. Of the 24 Grand Slam he's won, 3 times has been on the French Open. But the clay at Paris has always been a difficult one for him.
His favorite.
But who can say?
Not his favorite. He's always good, very good on the grass courts. Clay not really his favorite at this point in time. So that's why I said it's going to be a little bit tough for him to, crown it up, making it 25.
There's no Rafa Nadal, so it looks.
We shouldn't be even talking about Rafa Nadal, at this point, We should be taking a look at the likes of Yannick Sinner, Carlos Alcaraz, who can possibly, of course, give him a very tough time, on a very good day, this particular one. So we just hope to see. But for me, I think his chances of making it 25 Grand Slam on this particular French Open is a little bit slim.
Well, we still have some big names in the male category. Alexander Zverev, of course, we told you, took out Rafael Nadal. There are still Casper Ruud and any other big name there. We've not had any big name in the male category crash out.
Medvedev is still on. Zverev is still on. Stefanos Tsitsipas, of course, is still on.
Yannick Sinner is still there.
Yannick Sinner is still on. So I think for me, it's still a very tough one. None of the big names, of course, have been dropped, so far. And I think for me, it really calls for much worry for Djokovic, who is looking forward to put up another history for himself this time.
No big name has dropped in the male category, and I think it's the same for the female, because world number 1, Iga Swiatek, is into the second round. Arina Sabalenka, the world number 2, as well, is into the second round. It looks like the big name players are ensuring that they don't drop. Africa's Ons Jabeur as well is into the second round.
Yeah, in the female category, it's getting very interesting, and from what we're seeing, it's going to be a very tough one, today, where we're seeing the likes of Iga Swiatek, the defending champion, a lady who has won this, I think, for the 4th time now, and she'll be locking us against Naomi Osaka. This is going to be a very tough, encounter, and I tell you, one of them might be dropping in the second round of the competition. Naomi Osaka has not really gotten it that, very much well since she came back from maternity leave. She's been trying, of course, to put herself right. But she actually promised that she was going to do better in this particular one. But for Iga Swiatek, that have been doing very well, she's been very fantastic this season. She just won back-to-back titles, the Madrid Open and the Italian Open, before coming down to the French Open. You see, she's really much, of course, in form, and she has what it takes to be able to all-stars, Naomi Osaka on today's encounter. But we'll just keep our fingers crossed. Maybe upsets, of course, might play in this one, but I think the possibility of upset playing is a little bit slim at this point. But so for the in the female category, the big names are still there, and we look forward to see how far they'll be able to go in the competition.
Well, my eyes are on Arina Sabalenka. This is French Open. Arina Sabalenka, you remember, won the Australian Open, and she's looking at seeing whether she can win the Paris Open. We've never seen in the last 9 years where a female player wins the Australian Open and, of course, win the French Open. Yeah. If you do that, it means that you're on the way to winning a calendar Grand Slam. And a lot of people think that we've not seen anybody win a calendar Grand Slam, in the female category. Can we see it now? And a lot of attention right now is on Arina Sabalenka, the world #2 in female tennis, rather than Iga Swiatek.
For me, I think she's very close. After winning the Australian Open, she's actually she's had some fantastic games, for herself. In the last 2 tournaments, in the Madrid Open and the Italian Open, she was in the finals of those competitions. And now she's coming down to the French Open as well with that, form. And I think for me, she's very, very close, to making this particular one. So for Arina Sabalenka, I just think she just have to put up her A game, because in the last 2 games, Iga Swiatek, of course, has been at the one of her tough opponents. The Italian Open, Iga Swiatek defeated her. The Madrid Open, she also defeated her in the final. So for me, I think she really has to put up her A game to see how she can be able to get past Iga Swiatek this time. For me, I think it is only Iga Swiatek that can stop her. If she has what it takes to be able to get past Iga Swiatek, I think she'll be able to get this one.
Attention on Arina Sabalenka. Can she make it halfway of a calendar Grand Slam in female tennis? We'll keep our fingers crossed, and as we follow it and do report it for you here on Atlantic Television Network. And some action today, later today, Kingsley, at the French Open?
Yeah, some action today in the French Open. Like I mentioned, Iga Swiatek will be national against Naomi Osaka. A very interesting encounter, of course, to watch out for us as it stands. Can Naomi Osaka, of course, being able to put up a performance after coming back from maternity leave? For Iga Swiatek, she's been very, very fantastic, and for what it is, it's going to be a very interesting one to watch out for. Third seed Carlos Alcaraz will face qualifier Jasper de Jong, and I think for me that will be an easy ride as well, for him. We're looking forward to see how far, of course, to go. So it promises to be an interesting encounter today in the French Open, and we'll see, of course, who will be staying and who will be leaving the tournaments at the end of the day.
Who will stay, who will leave? It's the French Open second round, and we'll look at games, but I'm sure Naomi Osaka looks like one person that could be leaving if you follow her performances so far. And our next opponent on the court out there at the Paris Open. I feel for her. We want to see how it moves straight. But
anything can happen. We know she's playing against the best, Iga Swiatek, world #1. But maybe we might possibly see that the Naomi Osaka we used to see in the past 3 seasons.
Talking about history at the French Open, can Iga Swiatek make history? We've never seen a woman win, consecutively back to back 3 times at the French Open. Last time we saw that was 17 years ago when Justin Henin did win a 3rd consecutive Grand Slam at the French court. Iga Swiatek so far has won twice. Can she make history or meet the record of Justin Henin, who did it 3 times back-to-back 17 years ago?
When you take a look at her present form and what she's been able to do so far this season, you give it up to her. If there is no upset, if there are no upsets, in this
she was fantastic at Madrid, and Italian Open.
The Italian Open as well. So I think she has what it takes, going into this particular one. And I tell you, it's very close to her, except she want to let this one, slip off her. I think for what she's been able to do, she has the form, she has the experience, and she's good on clay as well. The other day she was talking about, people, naming her the Queen of Clay. That is too early for that. She really have to go far before she can be actually named a Queen of Clay. I think for me, she has what it takes to be able to get this one as well.
Igaswate has what it takes to wrap up the French Open and do make history as well, being the second woman in 17 years to win back-to-back and consecutively 3 times at the basketball league. Sorry, at the French Open in Paris. Let's see whether that will be possible. But she has the capacity and, of course, the pedigree going by what we saw of her at the Australian Open and, of course, in Madrid and at the Italian Open. These are where she's raked in a lot of points for herself. As for her status as world number 1, I think she just has to progress to the quarterfinal. And with that number of points, do get it right. Let's stay away from tennis now and go to football. And talking about football reminds me that there will be action at the President Cup for females later today. Rivers Angels are up against their counterparts from Edo, the Edo Queens in Oka later today. Can Rivers Angels take out the disappointment of not winning the Super Six, you know, on the winners themselves, Edo Queens, in Oka later today?
And for me, I think it's going to be a very tough one. Where you take a look at the way Rivers Angels, you know, they've played. If you take a look at the Super Six, the final game they played was against Heartland Queens, and they drew that particular encounter. Everyone thought they were going to get a win in that game, due to the fact that, you know, Heartland Queens were very abysmal in the Super Six for the Nigerian Women Football League. But they left it late and couldn't get the victory. But this time, I think they can possibly see how to challenge the league winners, talking about Edo Queens, and see how they can possibly get something, you know, in the Federation Cup, since they couldn't win the Nigerian Women Super Six, you know, as a stand. Let's just see what comes up at this point. But you will see with Moses Adaku being the helm of affairs for Edo Queens, it will be difficult for White Agbona, the coach of Rivers Angels, to be able, of course, to get this one done and dusted today.
Well, let's hope that Rivers Angels will get it done and dusted. Round of 16 fixtures across the country. I will hope that it will turn out to be one which looks interesting as well. The male are in action as well, Kingsley?
Yeah, the male are also in action now. We're going to be seeing some interesting fixtures as well. And one of them, of course, will be the encounter between Wiki Tories, who have also helped themselves, you know, to get out of relegation zone as it stands. Sunshine Stars will be in action against Rivers United. That will be an interesting match to watch out for. We will get down to the continent, you know, using the Federation Cup, you know, as a stand. I listened to the coach for the side after they played against Sporting Lagos, Evans Ogehi. He said that since they can't possibly get to the continent through the league as a stand, because it will be very difficult for them, that they can possibly get to the continent using the Federation Cup, that they have what it takes, you know, to be able to win the Federation Cup. And I think for me, it would be a good one if they can possibly get through the Federation Cup, you know, down to the continent. Rivers United, of course, they're a huge brand in Nigerian football, and I think they should always, of course, make themselves available when it has to do with continental football. And I think with this FA Cup, if they put everything right, they can possibly get there. Well,
let's get to a big story in football this hour. The Super Eagles of Nigeria, ahead of their World Cup qualifier against the Bafana of South Africa, in just about 6 days or so from now. Kingsley has suffered injury hit because top strikers of the team are injured. Notably among them is Victor Osimhen. He is pulled out of the competition now, citing injury concerns. There are several other players as well who are on the injury list.
Yeah, several is not in this one, and now we're seeing Victor Osimhen as well, you know, not also in this particular encounter. Of course, from the list we saw, William Trusecon was not even, you know, listed at this point in time.
Because of injury?
Of course, have to call one man from Enugu Rangers, Kenneth Oboke. He's a defender to replace Victor Osimhen. I don't know what, you know, strategy the man is trying to employ, you know, at this point in time. And this has actually taken the input of for the local players now, you know, to 3. Don't forget we have a certain player, Sadiq, from Remo Stars. We have Loke Joe from Enyimba, and now we have Connect, you know, from the Enugu Rangers side. I think Finidi trying to see how we can, of course, for him is the World Cup qualifiers. If Nigeria do not get to the World Cup qualifiers, to get to the World Cup in 2026, it will be a very, very abysmal one of players, and know that it's getting the best, and at the end of the day, they will deliver. For the up front, I think we still have some fantastic players. Victor Boniface, of course, is there, who has been firing, of course, for his team, and we have some other players on ground as well. So for me, I think from what we've seen so far, is a little bit of setback, but I think Finidi can possibly granted the needed results, in those qualifiers.
Super Eagles of Nigeria hit by injury concerns and ahead of the World Cup qualifier against Bafana of South Africa in Uyo on the 7th of June. And talking about World Cup qualifier reminds me that the Indomitable Lions of Cameroon are to play Cape Verde on the 8th. And for now, the Indomitable Lions camp is in turmoil because following a meeting last night between the FEGAFOOT, that's the Football Federation of Cameroon, and the new technical advisor or the head coach of the team, Mark Biggs from Belgium, there was a heated argument that led to lockout, and the coach stormed out of the meeting between him and, of course, the FEGAFOOT president himself, Samuel Eto'o. Some officials, some of the coaches, backroom staff of the head coach was blocked or stopped from attending the meeting. Some of ministry officials as well, banned from, in fact, stopped from attending the meeting at the door, and this led to a heated argument between Samuel Eto'o and the new coach of the Indomitable Lions of Cameroon. The meeting ended in deadlock, and it looks like a crisis can't stop, brewing here. The head coach was appointed by the government or the ministry, and Eto'o does not feel good about it. Eventually, we heard that he sacked the coach, but somehow there was a meeting last night. The meeting ended in a shout out, or do I say both sides shouting on the top of their voices, the coach storming out of the meeting, and some ministry officials and backroom staff of the head coach locked out from the meeting.
Okay, I think for me,
just about a week to the crucial World Cup qualifier
against Cape Verde in that matter.
Yes.
Cape Verde, they've actually improved, when it has to do with football, as it says. So for me, I think it's a very controversial one at this moment, and for me, it's just like the government are trying to interfere with football, down there in Cameroon, because when you want to appoint a manager, it is the federation, the sporting the football federation that actually see a way to get a manager that will be good enough, and then present it to the sport ministry and said, this is who we think can possibly do the job for us. The sport ministry will now scrutinize and be able to say, okay, go ahead with the coach, or no, we don't want this one, look for another one. But for the sport ministry to appoint a manager and expect the federation to carry on, I think for me it's a very huge one. I think that's why we're seeing all of this crisis, at this point in time. But we hope that at the end of the day, they'll be able to resolve this one and see how they can get there. A better encounter against Cape Verde.
Trust us here on Atlantic Television Network. We'll keep an eye on what's happening in Cameroon, and do report it 6 p.m. Nigerian time. There will be Sports Extraordinary. Beyond that, Chelsea now has a new coach. He's arriving Stamford Bridge any moment soon. The same for FC Barcelona. Their coach has arrived, Hansi Flick, as well, to finalize contract. So a lot to talk about on Sports Extraordinary at 6 p.m. Nigerian time. Until then, remember, peace and unity are clearly pathways to progress. Always enjoy here on Atlantic Television Network.
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports,